So let's just get right to it. Here are my top 5 favorite female characters in Star Wars.
You're listening to
Path of the Jedi
with your host, Ronnie Cruz.
All right, welcome to Path of the Jedi, the podcast where Star Wars meets personal development. My name is Ronnie Cruz, your host for this most excellent adventure. And yeah, well, happy International Women's Day, at least as of this recording. It is International Women's Day. So, what I wanted to do for this episode is celebrate International Women's Day by giving you guys my top 5 favorite female characters from Star Wars. So let's just get right to it. Here are my top 5 favorite female characters in Star Wars. Coming in at number 5 is a character by the name of Drash, who is really actually brand new to the Star Wars universe. Just made her first appearance in the recent series, The Book of Boba Fett. And we don't get a lot of Drash. We don't get a lot of backstory. We don't really know too much about her. But the little that we do get, for me anyways, it made a real impression, right? Really, really made a big impression on me. Such a strong character. And I think I gravitate towards this character largely because of the performance of Sophie Thatcher. She does such a great job with this role. Again, even with the limited screen time that she does have, it just really something about it leaves a mark, leaves a lasting impression on me. So I immediately am including her in my top 5 list. I certainly hope that we get to see more of her, whether or not we actually get a second season of Book of Boba Fett, or maybe through The Mandalorian or other future series that are coming out here on the Disney Plus for Star Wars. So number 5, Sophie Thatcher. Thank you for giving us the character of Drash. For number 4, we're going to go to the animated series Star Wars Rebels and the character of Hera Syndulla. That's right, Hera Syndulla at number 4. I absolutely love this show. I love Hera. Easily one of the standout characters, obviously. This is such a strong show, very, very well written. The character of Hera is so well thought out, so well fleshed out. There's so much depth to her. And actually, now that I think about it, there's so much depth to all the main characters in this series, which again is a testament to the incredible writing. But I love Hera, right? There's a quality about this character that I immediately connect with, on top of also being easily one of the best pilots in the entire Star Wars universe, right? So I love Star Wars Rebels. I love the character of Hera, and yeah, I'm kind of sad that they don't have the show anymore, but at least we can watch the reruns on Disney Plus. So coming in at number 4 is Hera Syndulla. All right, we're quickly getting to the nitty gritty here with number 3. All right, number 3, we're actually going to go again with an animated character from the series Star Wars, The Clone Wars. And of course, I think you guys can guess which character I'm going to pick here out of the Clone Wars series. Number 3 on my list is none other than Ahsoka Tano. Ahsoka, yeah, I mean, I think she's a crowd favorite anyways, but I mean, there's what's not to love about Ahsoka, right? I think her particular story arc through the entire 7 seasons of the show, I like it's one of the most fun things to watch because she goes through so much, right? She goes through so much growth. She goes through so much shifting of perspectives as a young Padawan to this full Jedi, but not really a Jedi because she leaves the Order, right? And on top of that, her character and her story is an integral part of the larger narrative, especially during this time in the Star Wars history of the Clone Wars, right? In this timeline, and then of course now in the current timeline with Rosario Dawson playing the live action version of Ahsoka Tano. So like you can't have a conversation about Star Wars without Ahsoka being brought into it, right? Because again, she's such a key role. She plays such a key role in everything that's happened over the years. So yeah, I absolutely love this character, the journey that she goes through as a young Padawan, and the growth and the broadening perspective that she has, especially once she starts becoming more at odds with the Jedi Order. It's such an amazing journey to watch, and again, a testament to the writing of these series, right? Like it's so well written and it's so fun to watch that. Yeah, well, I can't get enough of it. And again, I'm really happy that well, I'm sad that there is no more Clone Wars, but I'm happy that we get to see another version, or this furthering of Ahsoka's story through Rosario Dawson's performances in the live action series. We had her make an appearance in the Book of Boba Fett, and we saw her, of course, make an appearance in The Mandalorian. So I'm super excited for her series to come out. So I can't wait till that day. So that's why one of the many reasons that at number three we have Ahsoka Tano. Okay, number two. We are already at number two. This countdown's going quick, but I'm really enjoying this because I've never actually vocalized or verbalized any of these. So I'm having fun exploring this top five list. So at number two, who is it? Who is it? Who is my number two? My number two most favorite female character in the Star Wars universe is Rey from the sequel trilogy. That's right, Rey, which I guess from the last movie, she was a Rey Palpatine and then became Rey Skywalker. I'm not going to get into that discussion today, but I absolutely love this character. I mean, since ever since I first watched The Force Awakens, I was immediately enchanted with this character. It's hard not to fall in love with Daisy Ridley as she portrays this orphan girl who had to kind of make her way in this rough existence on Jakku. And then we find out that this no-name scavenger could potentially be the one that's going to bring balance to the force finally. So there's no, for me, there's no reason not to love this character. And of course, as if you guys listen back to the first episode of the podcast, I have a deeper connection with her as well. Being that lost orphan, trying to find her place in all of this, right? Where she fits in the entire story. And that's really all she's trying to do. She doesn't necessarily, at the root of it, is out here to save the entire galaxy, but does so because she's just trying to figure out who she is and where she fits in everything, right? So I love this character. I love Daisy Ridley's portrayal of Rey, and despite some of the issues I have with the writing and the story of The Rise of Skywalker, this character, Rey, I think is a strong character, and I will always really love this character. So that's why Rey is my number two.
Classified, really? Me too. Big secret.
And so we are at number one. That's right, number one. Who shall it be? Who is the number one? I think you guys can easily guess who my number one is, and I'm assuming she's the number one for most everyone else, right? This is kind of a no-brainer. So coming in at number one as my favorite Star Wars female character is none other than Princess Leia. Of course, guys, of course. How could I not pick Princess Leia as my number one? Well, first of all, I mean, I grew up with the original trilogy, so, she was it. She was it as far as female characters go in Star Wars at the time. And I love that she wasn't, I mean, okay, she was a princess, but she was never a damsel in distress, right? In fact, half the time she was the one saving the other guys and getting them out of trouble, right? So also, if you look at the era in which the original trilogy was released, this was really trailblazing stuff, right? And I would wager to say that Princess Leia, and especially as she's portrayed by Carrie Fisher, really broke a lot of those gender stereotypes that were around and really, honestly, are still around today. But I think it really helped an entire generation of people, an entire generation of kids, start to break and question those gender stereotypes, man. And that's why Princess Leia and Carrie Fisher will always be such a hero to so many, to myself included. And then, of course, you get on and as I started growing up, learning more about Carrie Fisher and her struggles, and really just getting to love her even more as an individual, and the things that she was willing to share about her own journey, with us, with the fans, with the public. She is and will remain an incredible inspiration to me, and I'm sure to everyone else, even outside of the Star Wars fandom, right? As an aside, if you guys haven't read her book, Wishful Drinking, go ahead and do yourself a favor and pick it up. I'll leave a link in the show notes of this episode where you can grab your copy. Like Carrie Fisher is amazing. She's left such an incredible legacy, with Princess Leia and everything else that she's done, the other books that she's written. And, there's really no other choice for number one on this list other than Princess Leia. Right, Princess Leia. By the end of the saga, by the end of the Star Wars Skywalker saga, she's General Organa. But to me, and I think to everyone else, she will always be our princess. And that does it. That wraps it up. My top five favorite female characters of Star Wars. Just to recap, number five, we have Drash from the Book of Boba Fett. Number four, we have Hera Syndulla from Star Wars Rebels. Number three, we have Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars The Clone Wars. Number two, we have Rey Skywalker from the sequel trilogy. And of course, at number one, none other than Princess Leia. That was super fun, guys. Thanks for indulging me in my top five list. I really enjoyed, again, as I mentioned, exploring that. And you guys might be wondering, well, what does any of that have to do with personal development? Well, number one, you guys who are regular listeners know that I love to celebrate people, right? I love to celebrate and lift people up, right? Especially on this show. That's why we do the shout outs. And I think International Women's Day, at least part of what International Women's Day is all about, is celebrating women, right? Past, present, and future. So I wanted to get on here and do that, right? Do that with exploring all the amazing female characters in the Star Wars universe. I think that's a great way to do it, and is also a great way to celebrate our fandom. Number two, I really wanted to address an issue that I think has been kind of plaguing that fandom for quite some time now. As difficult as this might be to believe, especially in this day and age, right? There's still a sector of the fandom that believes that Star Wars is just for boys, right? It's just for boys, which is absolutely nuts. Like, of all the ridiculous Star Wars opinions that are out there, there is nothing more just patently false than this assumption or this assertion that Star Wars is for boys. That's just not true. That's never been the case. It's never been true. And while this is a very small minority that believes this, they are unfortunately a very vocal minority, right? Especially on the social feed. So my advice would be to, if you see them, express this opinion on your social feed or on your timeline, just ignore it and move on. It's really not worth your time engaging with individuals that really have no intention of having discourse. And so yeah, I know it's annoying, but just delete them off your feed and move on. Now, that's not really actually the part of the conversation that I want to talk about, because there's another part of the conversation that's a little bit less obvious, right? I'm actually going to backtrack to 2019 Star Wars Celebration in Chicago, right? I attended that event. I had an amazing time, met so many people, and that's when I really started getting into exploring the podcast scene, right? As a listener, anyways, really finding and exploring some of the different podcasters that were there and checking them out. I checked out a bunch after that weekend. One particular podcast that I checked out had done some live streams and live recordings at the event itself. And this podcaster was interviewing a female actor. I believe she was one of the voice actors for the series. And the interviewer had asked a question that really, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he asked that. He asked of this woman, this female actor, he asked, do you think that there's an oversaturation of female characters in Star Wars? Now, of course, I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly the wording, but it was something to the extent that, do you think that Star Wars runs the risk of being oversaturated with female characters? Something to that extent. And as I'm listening, I'm thinking to myself, man, I cannot believe he asked this question. But I also, yeah, I kind of understand and believe that he asked this question, right? Now, it's not my intention to throw this guy under the bus by any stretch of the imagination. I just wanted to point out that I think he was completely unaware of the egregiousness of his question, right? He was completely unconscious to the overtly sexist point of view that anything, Star Wars or not, can be oversaturated with females, right? Right? He had no idea that he was presenting this position. And so I'm sitting there thinking, well, the answer to this guy's question obviously is no, for the simple fact that he's actually even asking this question and is completely unaware of his own sexist point of view. And so I bring this up because if we really want to evolve and adapt and survive and thrive moving forward into the future, we have to be willing to always question our definitions of the world around us, of the life and the experiences, the circumstances, the people that we encounter. And number two, we have to be willing to let go of any definitions that don't really serve us anymore and that are no longer relevant. This goes for everything, right? Especially the topic of gender equality. The more we hold on to our definitions, the less willing we are to let go of those things and question those things, the more anchored we get to the past. And getting anchored to the past only leads to one thing. It leads to extinction. We've talked about that in past episodes and past shows, right? So we got to be willing to, again, question everything that we know, everything that we think we know about the world, in order for us to rewrite our perspective so that we can move forward. It's as simple as that. That's the path of growth. That is the path of the Jedi. All right, well, that's going to do it for today's episode. A little bit of a quick episode today because I am on the road. Yeah, I forgot to tell you guys at the beginning. I am traveling right now, and there's going to be actually a lot of traveling happening in the coming weeks. So, yeah, well, no big deal. We will have a fresh episode for you every Wednesday nonetheless. So starting next week, we're going to dive into Star Wars Visions. That's right, Star Wars Visions. I love this series, and so I wanted to do an episode by episode discussion on the show. If you haven't seen it yet, it's still plenty of time. You can keep up with us here. Starting next week, we'll go over the first episode of Star Wars Visions called The Duel. You can catch that, of course, on the Disney Plus streaming service. As always, if you haven't yet done so and would like to, please connect with us on our social feeds. You can hit us up on Twitter and Facebook. It's at POTJ Podcast for both of those. You can catch my personal Instagram. It's at Cannibal Ron. And of course, TikTok, my brand new TikTok account, it's Ronnie's Big Adventure. Catch me on any one of those social feeds. And yeah, let's keep the discussion going. Let me know what you think of today's episodes or anything that we've talked about in today's episode celebrating International Women's Day, which actually we should call Galactic Women's Day, right? Galactic Women's Day. Yeah, let me know what you think. Yeah, oh, well, you can also email us, right? Of course, for those of you guys who still use email, send an email or even an MP3 to info@pathofthejedi.com with the title of today's episode in the subject heading. And of course, if there's anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to, please feel free to email shout out to info@pathofthejedi.com. Let me know who you'd like to give a shout out to and your message. I would love to read that out here on the show. Again, it's all about celebrating each other, man. Let's lift each other up. Let's celebrate each other. Again, you can send an email to info@pathofthejedi.com with shout out in the subject heading. That said, this week's shout out goes out to all the amazing women of the world, past, present, and future. Today is your day, at least as of this recording. Well, every day is your day, right? But especially today to celebrate International Women's Day, Galactic Women's Day. I want to give a shout out to all the amazing women out there that are just, well, yeah, there's no world without you, obviously. So I want to thank each and every one of you. I want to celebrate each and every one of you, and take some time to celebrate yourself as well. So without further ado, this shout out goes to you. And that's going to do it for today, folks. Please rate and review wherever rates and reviews are possible. We'll catch you again next week. Remember, we're going to start Star Wars Visions next week. So until then, everybody, please be well, be safe, and may the Force be with you.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company nor Lucasfilm Limited and is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names and sounds and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is intellectual property of Path of the Jedi unless otherwise indicated.